Have you ever had one of those nights where you just wanted to shut off every channel, delete the trading app from your phone, leave every Telegram group or Discord community about the markets, and disappear for a few months to fix on your own what had broken? Not because you're weak. That's a survival reflex already wired into you. This video is going to dissect the science behind that instinct and explain why silence, not bold declarations of a comeback, is the most powerful recovery tool a trader who's taken a heavy loss can use. This story is probably familiar to more than a few people watching right now. Your account just went through a serious drawdown, maybe 40%, maybe 60%, or worse, wiped out completely, the capital you'd spent years saving, gone in one string of trades that went the wrong way. That night, caught somewhere between panic and self-blame, a strange kind of euphoria suddenly hits you. You sit up, open your laptop, and promise yourself that starting tomorrow, everything will be different. You'll rebuild your entire trading system from zero, tighten up your risk management rules, and become a far more disciplined person than the one who lost money just hours ago. But right after that, you do something that will wreck the whole plan. You go tell someone else about it. Maybe it's a half-hidden caption on your story, something like "a different version of me is about to show up." Maybe it's a call to a friend who follows the markets too, or a confession to your spouse or your parents about the loss, along with a promise to win it back. The reaction you get is usually very positive. They comfort you. They say they believe in you. They remind you that anyone who's traded for a long time has taken falls like this. And in that exact moment of hearing those words, a wave of pleasant feeling washes over your body. That feeling is almost identical to just winning a big trade, even though you haven't placed a single order under the new plan yet. Then time passes, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. The new strategy sheet just sits there untouched in an Excel file. You're still entering trades on the same gut feeling as before, except now there's an extra psychological weight, the fear of being asked about it. When someone close to you tosses out a seemingly harmless question, "Have you recovered yet?" your stomach twists with a shame you can't quite name. You're forced to dodge the question, blame it on unusual market volatility, or change the subject. Why does this loop keep repeating for almost every trader who's tried to get back up after a heavy loss? It's not because you lack willpower. The problem lies in a neural mechanism most of us have no idea exists. The psychologist Peter Gollwitzer spent years studying a phenomenon called the social reality of personal goals. His conclusion is startling to a lot of people. The human brain is remarkably bad at telling the difference between the satisfaction of announcing an intention and the satisfaction of actually completing that intention through real action. When you share your recovery plan with someone and they nod in acknowledgement, your brain immediately processes that as a kind of accomplishment already achieved, even though, in reality, you haven't opened a single chart to backtest anything. That's dopamine withdrawn ahead of schedule. You get the feeling of being recognized, of being trusted, without having paid any price in real effort. And every time you repeat this, telling someone else about your intentions, instead of quietly carrying them out, you're burning through the exact psychological fuel that should have gone toward hours in front of a screen, analyzing, journaling, and holding the line on discipline. In other words, you're trading the fuel for a long journey for one brief round of applause, right at the starting line, a line you haven't even taken a single step past. This is why recovering in silence isn't some pun-trendy pose to look mysterious or professional in front of the trading community. It's a biological requirement if you actually want to change. Silence is uncomfortable, that's true, but that very discomfort is the protective mechanism. When there's no one to tell, the only way you can feel progress is to actually make progress completing a set of trading rules you can verify with data, holding the right risk-reward ratio through dozens of consecutive trades, closing out your trading journal every night with numbers that can't be faked. Silence locks the reward inside the machine, forcing you to do the real work to earn it instead of spending it early in the form of praise from outsiders. When you go through a financial collapse in front of a lot of people, say, losing right during the evaluation phase of a funding challenge after already telling your whole friend group you were about to get funded, or blowing up a margin account in front of an entire trading community where you used to post your weekly profit charts, or losing money your whole family had pitched in because they trusted you, something inside you genuinely breaks. But if you look closely at that pain, you'll notice something rather surprising. The part that tortures you most is rarely the amount of money lost. What wounds you the deepest is usually the look in the eyes of the people who witnessed it, people who once trusted you, people you once bragged your winning trades to, people you'd made too many promises to. In psychology, this extremely fragile state is sometimes described as a bleeding ego. When a trader's ego is in that state, the last thing they need is an audience watching. They don't need advice like, you should have cut the loss sooner, even if it comes from a good place. And they definitely don't need pity, one of the most dangerous emotions a person who has just lost money can receive. Pity works like a magnifying mirror held straight up to your deepest fear. That maybe you're not good enough, that this path of trading isn't for you, that the decision to chase the financial markets was a mistake from the very start. It quietly carves in a toxic message that you're the one who broke while everyone around you stayed intact, and that strips away your right to self-determination in your own recovery journey. If you choose to make your account rebuilding process public in front of the whole community, you're voluntarily placing yourself under an extremely toxic kind of pressure, constant social surveillance. Everyone who knows about your loss is now, whether on purpose or not, tracking every step you take. The questions, are you okay, and have you recovered anything yet? Mostly come from genuine goodwill, but your brain doesn't process it that way. It interprets every one of those questions as a kind of potential threat. Every time you get asked, you're forced to relive the loss you're trying to move past, and worse, you're forced to measure your own progress through the lens of other people's judgment instead of through the objective numbers in your account. Physiologically, being under constant observation while you're hurting causes cortisol levels in your blood to spike abnormally. Sustained cortisol keeps your body locked in a prolonged state of alarm, the worst possible physiological state to be in when you need to make financial decisions that require total calm. And here's the key point, neuroscientifically speaking, and the reason so many traders trying to recover their losses while under scrutiny sink even deeper into losses. When your nervous system is in alarm mode, the prefrontal cortex, the region in charge of analytical thinking, long-term planning, and the ability to suppress the urge for immediate action, gets significantly suppressed. That's exactly the region of the brain you need to engage the most when reading charts, calculating position sizes, or patiently waiting for a high-quality entry signal. Put plainly, you can barely rebuild a clear-headed trading system when your mind is constantly busy trying to prove something to the people watching you. This is exactly why the urge to leave every trading group, mute every social media notification, and vanish from the community's site can hit so powerfully after a big loss. Quite a few people in the trading community will call this behavior giving up, running away, lacking the courage to face things. But looked at through the lens of evolutionary biology, the story is completely different. In nature, a badly wounded alpha predator never lies down in an open field for the whole pack to witness its weakness. It withdraws to somewhere hidden, dark, completely isolated, and only comes back once the wound has healed. Your urge to disappear after a heavy loss isn't a character flaw. It's a survival instinct that's existed in human beings for a very long time. You haven't lost your mind, and you're not giving up on your passion for the markets either. Your brain is simply demanding a space free of observers so it can carry out an urgent surgery on your wounded trader identity. You need to remove the audience so the psychological cracks have a chance to heal, and so you can reopen your trading journal with complete objectivity, without the fear of judgment clouding your eyes. If you've ever browsed trading communities online, you've probably come across an overly glamorized version of this recovery process. People like to call it grind mode or a total reset. You see the beautiful clips. The trader waking up at 5 in the morning, 3 monitors glowing with charts in a dark room, a cup of black coffee beside them, a neat stack of trading psychology books on the desk. It looks very cinematic. It looks very inspiring, but I have to be honest with you about something a lot less pleasant. That's not what real recovery from a loss actually looks like. It's just another form of performance, dressed up in the costume of discipline and minimalism to look more authentic. When you genuinely step into the withdrawal phase, actually muting notifications, leaving the chat groups, seriously committing to rebuilding both your system and your trading psychology, you'll run into a stage that psychologists call the messy middle. The first 2 weeks usually bring a strange sense of relief. No more watching other people's profit boards. No more forcing yourself to look fine on social media. You can feel a clear sense of control returning to your hands. But by the second, third month, the dopamine from the novelty of your disciplined routine starts running dry, and the stillness starts to feel heavy, almost tortuous. It's no longer as simple as reading books and backtesting strategies. There are nights you lie awake at 2 in the morning, your mind spinning with worry over whether your remaining capital is even enough to start over, wondering if you're wasting your time chasing something that isn't meant for you. During this stage, you'll lose some relationships. You'll lose touch with a number of people in your trading community, not because of any specific fight or falling out, but simply because you no longer want to play the role of the trader on the rise they'd cast you as, and you're no longer around for them to measure their own performance against. Chat groups that used to be lively go quiet toward you. Invitations into signal rooms, weekend calls to talk strategy, all slowly thin out and then disappear. You'll realize that quite a few of your relationships in the trading world were actually built on nothing more than showing off results together, not on any real depth of connection. And in that empty space, your mind starts playing dangerous games with you. This is exactly the stage where most traders collapse on their recovery journey. The loneliness becomes too much to bear, so they try to escape it through old habits. Opening an oversized position that isn't part of the plan just to feel still in the game, going back to signal groups they already know can't be trusted, or going all in on a single trade to quickly prove they've still got it all just to run from the unprocessed thoughts screaming inside them. But if you're persistent enough to stay in that quiet space, a profound psychological phenomenon starts to unfold, something many researchers call the death of the old self. To build a truly solid trading system, you first have to completely tear down the rotted foundation of the old trader you used to be, the one who traded on emotion, who believed in promises of fast profits, who took capital management lightly out of overconfidence. You have to let that old trader identity truly die before a new version has any chance of forming. The ego doesn't accept this easily. It will resist to the very end. In the stillness, your mind will keep circling back to your most shameful moments. Every time you broke your own capital management rules, every time you stubbornly held on to a losing trade, believing the market would turn around, every time you entered a trade purely out of fear of missing out, it will try to convince you that this period of isolation is proof you're not cut out for the financial markets, instead of understanding its true nature, that this is exactly the process where real healing is happening. This transitional stage looks nothing like the inspirational footage you're used to seeing. It's more like major surgery without anesthesia. It's messy, it's tormenting, and it forces you to grieve for the trader you used to be, someone who once believed getting rich quick was possible, who used to show off profits on social media, who naively thought the market would always favor them. You need to let yourself mourn the identity you lost and the financial future you once dreamed of before everything fell apart. You're going through the process of shedding an old layer of yourself, and anyone who's ever shed a layer knows the raw, vulnerable feeling that comes with it. If right now you're in the middle of quietly rebuilding your account and your trading psychology, feeling utterly alone, overwhelmed, like you're slowly losing control of yourself, stop for a moment and take a deep breath. You are not crazy. The discomfort you're feeling is exactly what it feels like when the neural circuits tied to financial decision-making are being rewritten from scratch. If the silence hurts, that means the healing is genuinely happening. Most self-help books, even the popular ones on trading psychology, tend to give you the same advice right after you've taken a big loss. They tell you to forgive yourself as soon as possible. They tell you to practice self-compassion, let the past go, drop the shame, and quickly get back into the market with an optimistic mindset. I'm going to offer you the completely opposite view. Don't be in a hurry to let go of that shame. Shame isn't a toxic emotion that needs to be meditated away immediately. It's not proof that there's something wrong with your character as a trader either. From a neuroscience standpoint, intense negative emotions, shame, regret, humiliation after a big loss are actually one of the most powerful catalysts for the brain's capacity for neural reorganization. That capacity is what lets the brain break down old trading habits and build new, far more disciplined neural pathways. The brain rarely changes when things are going smoothly, when the account is growing steadily. It only truly shifts when it senses a real existential financial threat. When you go through deep shame after blowing up an account, your nervous system enters a state of extreme alertness. That state makes the neural pathways tied to risk-based decision-making extraordinarily flexible, easy to reshape. Essentially, this is your body's way of trying to carve in a lesson you can't forget, to make sure you never repeat the same capital management mistake that just wiped you out. But this is also exactly the point where most traders sabotage their own chance at recovery. They can't stand the discomfort that comes from that biological pressure. So what do? They vent it out. They go into groups to complain about market makers manipulating prices, about the broker hunting their stop loss, blaming everything except themselves. They look for people willing to say, "It's not your fault, the market was just unusual that day." Or, "Everyone who trades blows up an account sometimes, you did your best." Venting is actually a very subtle trap. When you vent, you're opening a pressure valve on your own nervous system. The brain gets a small hit of serotonin, delivering instant relief. But that very act of releasing the pressure outward dissolves the energy you actually need to genuinely change how you trade. Without that intense internal pressure, real transformation won't happen. You're just numbing the pain temporarily, and a few months later, you'll find yourself back in the exact same losing loop, just with a new account but the same unchanged way of thinking. This brings us to the second principle of recovering in silence. You need to learn how to convert shame into fuel for action. Instead of trying to run from the humiliation of your most recent blown account, from the awkwardness of having to tell your family the investment evaporated, or from the embarrassment of failing a prop firm's evaluation after already bragging to your friends about it, do the opposite. Gather all of that negative energy and lock it away in a psychological vault of your own. Picture that shame as something like a nuclear reactor. If you let it leak out uncontrolled, it can destroy your confidence, damage your relationships, and push you into revenge trading, one of the most dangerous traps any trader can fall into. But if it's tightly controlled, kept sealed inside a high-pressure environment like absolute silence, that same source of energy can generate enough endurance to sustain an entire financial recovery journey lasting many months. On the mornings you wake up at 5 to backtest a strategy while completely exhausted, in the moments you stare at a blank trading journal page and just want to give up, on the days the isolation feels almost unbearable, don't count on motivation. Motivation is a fragile emotion, coming and going unpredictably, and it almost always vanishes exactly when you need it, most usually right before an important trading decision. Instead, go back to the psychological vault you've been keeping. Reach directly into the energy of shame, anger, and regret stored inside it. Remember exactly how it felt watching your account balance approach zero. Remember the tone of voice of the people who pitied you, or worse, the ones who quietly laughed at your choice to become a trader. Remember the sting of having to sell off an asset to cover a loss and then use that same concentrated volatile fuel to force yourself to sit down at the desk, open the trading journal, and get to work. You don't need to hate yourself, but you absolutely need to respect the power hidden inside your own pain. When you recover in silence, you're not burying or suppressing your emotions at all. You're simply refusing to waste them on the ears of people who don't actually care whether you become a disciplined trader or not. You're preserving every bit of that psychological pain to forge a version of yourself that's no longer so easily shaken by market volatility. Now that you understand why silence is a biological requirement, and you know how to turn old wounds into fuel, it's time to talk about the concrete execution. Understanding the psychology of isolation means nothing if you don't have a concrete framework to protect yourself throughout the process. If you genuinely want to fully restructure your trading mindset, you need to commit at least 6 months of uninterrupted, focused effort. That's the minimum amount of time it takes to break trading behavior loops that have become deeply ingrained in your subconscious, to establish new reflexes around discipline and risk management, and to build a foundation solid enough that it won't collapse from a single string of losing trades. I call this framework the 6-month anonymity strategy, and it runs on 3 core principles. Principle 1, no dramatic goodbye. When most traders decide to enter the recovery phase, the ego usually tempts them into making some kind of public announcement. They post an emotional status update along the lines of, stepping away from everything for a while to heal and find myself again. Or they send long messages to every member of the group explaining why they need a break. Don't do that. Publicly announcing your withdrawal is really just another way of seeking attention, disguised as maturity and seriousness. It's still quietly saying, notice that I'm changing, okay? If you're truly serious about this healing process, you don't need to announce anything at all. You just need to quietly withdraw. Stop posting your winning trades. Stop updating your account status on social media. Stop tracking other people's profit rankings in the groups. Simply step off the public stage quietly. Real silence doesn't need any explanation attached to it. Principle 2. Build the habit of not disclosing information. Of course, you can't cut yourself off from the world completely. You still need work, family, ordinary relationships, and you may still have to explain the lost money to your loved ones. But you have no obligation to share the details of your recovery journey with anyone. While you're rebuilding your account, the people around you will inevitably ask, how's the trading going lately? Or how much have you recovered so far? Understand that most of these questions don't come from a genuine desire to help. The person asking usually wants data to compare their own position against yours, or is simply curious for something to talk about. They're gathering information to judge whether you're progressing or falling behind compared to them. Your job is to give them no data to work with. When you're asked, give the dullest, most generic answer you can. Look them straight in the eye, smile faintly, and say, still relearning from the ground up, just focused on staying disciplined. That's enough. Don't reveal the new strategy you're backtesting. Don't state how much capital you have left. Don't share the specific recovery target in dollars that you've set for the next 6 months. Keep every answer minimal, non-committal, containing no useful information whatsoever. When there's no data to grab onto, other people will gradually lose interest in judging you, and naturally, they'll stop asking. Principle 3. Maintain absolute discipline without expecting recognition. This is where this framework separates out the people who truly have what it takes to keep going. Once you succeed in cutting out all the noise, making the whole world blind to your recovery process, you'll fall into a complete void. No one claps when you stick to your predetermined position size. No one acknowledges the fact that you patiently passed on an entry signal that looked tempting but didn't meet your system standards. The only thing keeping you on track is the promise you made to yourself in the dark, and the objective numbers sitting in your trading journal. You have to repeat these daily trading disciplines almost mechanically, without any external validation whatsoever. But if you can sustain this for 6 straight months, something remarkable happens. You'll reach a state of almost complete psychological freedom in your trading. Because when no one knows which asset pair you're trading, no one knows the strategy you're testing, no one knows what level your account is at, then no one has the right to judge you as wrong. And no one can panic you into closing a position early just because of the pressure to prove something to them. Your mind and every trading decision within it belongs entirely to you. Finally, we arrive at the last leg of this journey. You've made it through the most chaotic stage. You've learned how to turn the shame of a big loss into motivation. You've kept your information sealed for the past 6 months, and now it's time to come back. But before you step back into the light, I need to dismantle one final illusion, one that has been quietly steering you since the very day you decided to disappear. For most traders, the initial motive behind starting this journey is actually fairly ordinary. Be honest with yourself for once right now. When you first felt that urge to leave the community and quietly rebuild your account, most of the drive inside you came from wanting some form of revenge. You wanted to quietly build an undeniable growth curve, then suddenly hold that statement up in front of everyone who once doubted you, pitied you, or quietly drifted away from you. You wanted to see the shock plainly written on their faces. You wanted to make them feel they'd misjudged you. That's a completely understandable and normal starting point. Anger and ego are actually very effective sources of initial motivation for a long and lonely journey. But here's the deepest turning point in this entire recovery process. By the time you actually achieve your goal, once your brain has finished restructuring its risk-related reflexes and has solidly reinforced new neural pathways around capital discipline, a profound shift takes place inside your awareness. On the day you actually reach the recovery goal you set, when your account not only returns to its old level but surpasses it, thanks to a genuinely sustainable system, you'll realize something unexpected. You no longer care about the reactions of the people who once doubted you. The recognition you once craved so intensely 6 months ago now feels remarkably faint, almost meaningless. You don't need their applause anymore because you've spent the last 6 months applauding yourself in the dark every time you honored your stop loss, every time you resisted an impulsive trade. You're no longer on the same frequency as traders obsessed with performing their profits in front of a crowd. You've genuinely escaped the biological trap of trading real action for hollow recognition. When you step back into the market and your trading community, you won't need to announce your return. You won't need to post some grand statement to prove anything to anyone. Your trading journal, your discipline, and the quiet, undeniable weight of the skill you now possess will speak for themselves without a single word. You haven't just recovered the capital you lost. You've reborn an entirely new version of your trader identity, one that's nearly immune to crowd opinion, to market rumors, and to the pressure of having to prove yourself through impulsive trades. The psychological surgery is complete. It's time to step out of this isolation room and get to the real difficult work ahead, patiently rebuilding one trading session at a time, not to prove anything to anyone, but for the person you've decided to become. If what was just shared helped you see your own recovery journey more clearly, subscribe to this channel. Let this be your quiet anchor, the place you come back to whenever the isolation feels like too much, and you need a blunt reminder of why you started in the first place. And if right now you're in the middle of quietly rebuilding your own account, remember the most important rule. Don't tell anyone your specific recovery target in dollars. Don't let that precious biological energy leak out for nothing. Let that commitment stay inside you, quiet, unspoken, and proven only by the number in your account when that day finally comes. Now, turn off this screen. Close the chart and get to work in silence.